What's up, YouTube? Welcome. I got a nice little beginner's guide to the spear for you that I felt like I wanted to push out as soon as I could. I'm not even halfway done with the game as far as I know, but I'm enjoying it so much that I just had to get this out here. I think part of the reason I'm enjoying it as much as I am is because it feels very much like Neo. You may or may not have played Neo, but if you have, I'm sure you see the similarities as well. But anyway, let's start this off by mentioning that this game, like many other Souls-likes, you have to manage your stamina quite a bit throughout your fights. You can't just do minute-long combos or spam attacks. Just opening with the same combo every time might not work, and even with help from skills, armor set bonuses, you rarely get to just use all your stamina with no consequences. For the defensive side of things, you don't need to choose between whether you're only going to be blocking or only dodging. The trick for defense is to use block on multi-hit attacks and dodge when you want to take advantage of a big opening. I say the trick because that's probably not consistent throughout the entirety of the game, but definitely for like the early game stuff, you're probably just going to be able to get away with, dodging to get your openings on the trash mobs so that they don't overwhelm you and stuff like that. Because if you just focus too much on blocking for a lot of the early game stuff, a lot of the trash mobs and things like that, you're more likely to just be ended up like healing at the end of every engagement. And so that, you gotta trust me on that, where being able to just get that damage out, not focusing too much on getting the perfect parries. I know they feel really good, or the perfect blocks, whatever. Feels good. It's satisfying, but learn it as you go, sure, and definitely against the big enemies where you need to do it. But for the most part, you want to just utilize your dodge, get your damage out, take some enemies out, whatnot, and then focus on blocks for like the bigger stuff. So I've personally been using the spear for the most part, and its skill tree seems really fun. I like the balance of being able to dish out a ton of hits while still being able to move freely. Its range and its cleave is also very nice. To get the most out of the spear though, you'll want to understand moon stance. Let's see. So for moon stance, I guess we should point out Moonlight first, but the third attack of a swift attack becomes a slashing attack, and that is what Moonlight is. So your quick attacks, at the end of your quick attack string, you do a slightly different attack, but this is called Moonlight, and by doing Moonlight, you activate Moonlight stance. And what it basically does, it gives you an additional after image attack, and it says Moonlight stance lasts for 15 seconds, and also leveling this up increases the amount of stamina damage for after image stacks. So again, it's fairly simple, and for anyone not familiar with it, I'm sure you'd still be able to understand how sweet it is when you learn that like the after image attacks are basically like a shockwave effect to your attacks, so that you're hitting multiple times per swing. The damage of the Moonlight strikes are lower than the actual hits, but it's still a fair amount being applied. But it's not only that, there's synergies with the moon stance that manage to make it stand out even more, like dealing more stamina damage and even stamina recovery speed. And I'm sure there's even more as we like get further in the game as well and see more of the skill tree sort of branch out. But this is I'm only at level 16, so we're basically just going over like the beginner, the entry stuff. Fact is, you're fighting enemies that will attack back, right? And even more importantly, you're fighting a wide variety of enemy types. So understanding moon stance is important, because you're not going to be able to just like push out as much damage as possible by doing the longest string combo you can and stuff like that. They're gonna hit back. So managing stamina, getting synergies off of something like a Moonlight stance and such, I'm sure you get where I'm going. You got your usual trash mob, who is only really a threat by joining other enemies. You have your heavy but slow enemy that won't get staggered all that easily, and you have your more advanced enemy or even elites that will attack fairly quickly while also not being easy to stagger. So we want to find skills that can help us deal with all these enemies, right? As well as skills that we can use against bosses. Thankfully, this game lets us refund skill points to move around as we please, so we can switch to a boss build just before entering the boss room. Starting out, you might find yourself putting a point into something, then taking it out to replace or to put it into something else that might seem more effective in the short term, knowing that you'll eventually put that point back once it makes more sense to do so. That's all like that's going to be more confusing to just go over. So instead, I'm going to walk through each and every optimal skill point, not per level up, because again, that would be confusing and take too long. I'm just going to show you the best skills you can have with say 10 or up to like 10 skill points, level 10 essentially, and then up to like 15 skill points. I'm even going to do it backwards. So I'm going to show you guys where I'm at right now with the 15. I have 16 right now, but 16 skill points, and then we'll cut off 6 skills or skill points from the skill tree. And I think in doing so, that should also kind of help you understand, like, you know, I'm obviously going to be taking them away from skills that might not be super necessary or might not have like a worthwhile synergy yet. So I figured by taking away skill points and kind of going down to 10, that also sort of helps you understand like where to put points as you go up, right? So I figured that would be just the smarter way to do it, the easier way, 2 birds, 1 stone, whatnot. So first we'll look at where I'm at right now, and let's see. So again, Moonlight Stance, phenomenal. It's basically required if you're going to be using the spear. The Moonlight Step, this is, I don't know if you guys play on controller or whatnot, but I do, so we'll just show the controller buttons just to keep it I'd say less confusing, but again, anyway, so Moonlight Stance, while dodging in Moonlight Stance, you gain the ability to do another dodge immediately. So this is one that I won't do it right now, but this is one that I'm like, yeah, you can probably not take that one. You probably don't need it right away or whatnot. But Moonlight Stance Vitality, gain increased stamina recovery rate while in Moonlight Stance. Sick. It's just beautiful. We love stamina recovery rate. That does mean that you would need to stop attacking for the recovery to start applying, but once it starts applying, you'll get all your stamina back, and you can, you know, go back to maybe a combo or a decision like a dodge and whatnot. So very good, and it's passive, so you don't really need to worry about it. So full moon, this I feel like I want to talk about it now, but I'm also going to mention it again later when I show off some of the skills and how they work. But full moon is insane. It's disgusting. When I was thinking about making this video and kind of writing up a bunch of like data and stuff like that, I was taking notes and doing math and all this stuff and paying attention to like the skill gauge. My dog's going crazy. But the full moon it's insane. Take my word for it, and I'll show you too, but for now we'll just take my word for it. Shadow Cleave, this isn't like crazy impressive, at least by itself, so I would say this is, you know, this is definitely one that you would probably refund. You don't need this, and it's even better that like it's not required like Moonlight to get to these skills. You basically can take it or not, right? So this is nice early just for some extra damage, but it's not necessary. And I'll go over all of the ones I'm going to take off, and we'll sort of like end the screen with like 10 skill points so that you can maybe take a better note of that, and then I'll put them back and show you guys some of the actual combat and stuff. But yeah, inflicting an additional strike with the 3rd strike of Potent Blow, that's not super necessary. Let's see, 0 point is amazing. 0 point is so sick. It's not super necessary, but it's pretty good even in like a non perfect efficient build, right? Because it gives you the ability to sort of convert from your light attack to your heavy attack, basically, and your heavy attack to your well, I guess specifically this says during Potent Blow or Vital Strike, so it's more so from your heavy attack you can go into your light attack, which don't forget, light attack does help you get Moonlight Stance to proc. Once Moonlight Stance is proc, by the way, it lasts for like 15 seconds and you can just reapply it. So it's really not that hard to keep it up. It's just deciding to do the full combo or look for shortcuts in the combo, which I should be able to go over. I don't know if anything will remind me throughout the skills. Yeah, sure. Anyway, but yeah, it's not too bad. 15 seconds is insane. And then full moon will reduce the amount of time you have in it in Moonlight stance, but we'll come back to this in a second. Anyway, 0 point, great. Lets you combo your stuff, lets you chain into things, and kind of keeps your attacks flowing and going. It's gonna cost stamina to keep that stuff going, but you know, sometimes you just want to be able to do more damage because you got the stamina. So that's one way to do it. Spiral thrust. This was probably the longest of my my info gathering that I had to do for deciding like which spirit ability just does the most, right? Which one does the most by itself, which one does a lot and can probably be secondary to another spill or spirit skill or something like that. But what I kind of came down to, or the conclusion was for me, was spirit thrust is just insane. It does so much damage by itself. It doesn't do like in a like absurd amount, but if you get spirit thrust swirl, which you should have access to by level 10, this all gets unlocked at level 10, and then these are level 18. So yeah, there's no like barrier for level 15 or anything like that, but you should have access to this once you're level 10 as well. And the spiral thrust swirl, this thing, it's gross. It's gross. So it says you gain the ability to charge the spiral thrust, right? There's a spiral thrust, and now you can charge it and get that cool animation. But the charge the skill to gain, charge the skill to consume one additional spirit charge and gain increased poise and damage. Sorry about my dog. Deal greater damage immediately after using brutal attack or when using the skill against exhausted enemies. It says or, but that also means and. So you can use it basically when you get an enemy exhausted, that's when you're able to do the brutal attack, right? But I don't know if that looked smooth or whatnot, but I paused the video. I had to close the door. All right, we're back. Charge skill. We'll use up another spirit charge. Sure, you get increased poise and damage. Poise means like if something hits you, you're probably not going to get knocked back, unless it's like a massive attack. So keep that in mind. But you get the increased poise. Maybe poise in this game actually reduces the amount of damage you take. I'm not sure. But deal greater damage immediately after using brutal attack or when using the skill against exhausted enemies. I'm sure you probably picked up on what I was trying to get at just a second ago, but when you exhaust an enemy, basically you reduce their stamina to 0. I'll show you. When you exhaust an enemy, you're able to do the brutal strike. That's that red circle right there. You hit B or circle, whatever, and you get the brutal strike. So what it's saying in the skill tree here for spiral thrust is during that, when they're exhausted, you're going to be able to do more damage. And also after using it, you're going to be able to do more damage. So basically you get to use it twice, but charging it means you're going to use an additional skill point, right? So that means you're probably going to be spending like 4 skill points to get the max amount out of this, but that's fine. What else are you going to be using your skill points for, or your spirit points for, right? There is a bunch of other stuff, and like I said, this is probably where I spent the most time trying to figure this stuff out. But Crescent Strike, it's a lot of damage, it's fast, it only costs 1 spirit energy, but that's it. Against like bosses or big enemies and stuff like that, you're probably going to be seeing Spirit Thrust and Spirit Thrust Swirl be like your main disgusting dish of damage. Eventually, when you get more points, I'm sure there's going to be a reason or enough of an excuse to grab something like Crescent Strike so you can just get rid of maybe trash mobs a little quicker and whatnot, and maybe even do it before you go for these in case you can't, afford all of it. But the damage is amazing. You do it during the exhaust, you do it after, right? And you'll get insane amount of damage. If you don't know, attacking enemies in the back is 50% more damage. Attacking an enemy while they're exhausted is also 50% more damage. So those combined, if you attack an enemy in the back, say you're going up against the boss, and you've been building up your spirit points. Real quick. You've been building up your spirit points, right? So you have 4, and then as soon as you get them exhausted, you will charge it, get your brutal hit. You can probably get a few more attacks out and whatnot, but that's basically it. You're doing the full thing. Why do I still have 2 spirit points? Didn't I just spend 4, or did I not hold it? Did I get 2 more? I don't know. I'll watch it back, I guess. But anyway, but that's basically what you need to know about that. It's very strong. It's very good. You can just use the level 1 version against like basic mobs. Like, don't be afraid to do that. That's totally fine. Or even like the more advanced mobs and whatnot. But keep that in mind. Back damage is 50%. Back damage, or sorry, and exhaust damage is 50%. Back and they're exhausted, that's 100%. So you're gonna see this thing do just disgusting numbers. All right. If you're wondering about this, it's just extra damage. You can take it, but it's pretty obvious why you don't need it if you don't have the extra points, right? All right, let's see. So I could go over a lot of the stuff I didn't choose as well, but I don't want to make this video like exhaustingly long. Plus, again, I'm planning on making more videos for this game, the more advanced, the end game spear build and stuff like that, and maybe even touch on the other weapons as well. But for now, we'll just try and talk about what we're currently rocking. Chaser Devourer. This is one of those where it's good for bosses and other, like, just clearing out maps and stuff like that. It's very good. Finding a way to just generate your spirit consistently means that you'll have your damage options more often. It's not super necessary. Building like 4 points or something like that by the time you get a boss down to his exhaust state and whatnot, it might be pretty doable, and each time you do it, you get the damage off and whatnot, and then you start working on their stamina bar again. By that time you might have 4, maybe not. Well, you know, yes, no, maybe so. But the point is, this will help you a lot. It's really good. And when you get to a point where you actually start to generate spirit charge more easily, then, you know, this might not be as good, but there's a pretty good chance, even with that being the case, however much the game is balanced around that stuff, this will still be very good, in my opinion. So I love Devour. I think just helping you clear mobs, clear trash and stuff like that, it's very good. And against bosses, I'd say it's pretty good as well. So that's just my opinion on that. I like it. And then finally, and I know I say finally, but it doesn't even seem like that many skills. We're only really at level 16, but finally you got Breakdown, which is deal increased stamina damage to enemies affected by Brink Guard. It's great. I like it. Getting the Brink Guard is not that hard. You can get like one good block, a perfect block and whatnot, and that applies Brink Guard. I'm not sure how long Brink Guard lasts. I could probably check, but it's good. I think it's great. And stamina damage is kind of what this build sort of will revolve around. Why is that? It's because we can finally go back to it. Full Moon. Full Moon has disturbingly high stamina damage. I don't totally understand it. And you can get it even higher with other abilities that we're not going to get into right now. But Full Moon does massive, like it does a lot of damage, and it just obliterates stamina. I think the reason that is because of it actually takes advantage of the Moonlight stance, the aftershock that I mentioned. A lot of all the attacks besides spirit attacks seem to actually benefit from Moonlight stance's shocks, the shockwave. Spirit attacks like the spiral thrust, you won't see the effect of Moonlight, even if you're in Moonlight. But for some reason, full moon, I mean, it doesn't use up any spirit, which is also a huge plus. And you'll notice I only have it at level 2 of 3. And the reason for that is at level 1, it removes Moonlight stance whenever you use full moon. That's doable. If you feel like you can get away with it as you like play around with it, maybe you might see yourself like, yeah, maybe I can get away with 1. Level 2 is a lot more comfortable for me, and I think it's going to make more sense as you get further and you're able to spend more skill points and stuff like that, because of things like 0 point, where you're going to be, you can kind of extend your combos and stuff like that, so you want Moonlight to still be there. But the thing is, and I mentioned this already, you can just kind of go back into Moonlight. It's not that hard. So putting this down to like level 1 and having it removed, you can get back to Moonlight, but that does again require you to actually do the final hit here. So unless you're familiar with how you're going to do your shortcuts to get into that final hit, or you have a skill that helps you get into that final hit, which would be, it's somewhere in here. There's one that lets you get to the final hit of your slash attack as well. One that we haven't gone over, but there are ways to do it. But early on, like I said, you can definitely get away with 1. It's totally fine. Level 2, I feel like can be the case for a long time, maybe even like end game, because level 3, it's not like it's definitely a huge difference. I'll say that. How much you lose. So level 2, you might be able to see it. So at the bottom under my stamina, you can see when I get Moonlight. So there's Moonlight, and it's ticking down. It's about, there's like a quarter, and now it's like a half, right? So again, you can reapply it. So we got Moonlight again. When I do full moon, and this is level 2, you're gonna see it get chunked. Like now it's down to like a few seconds. You can still do it before it runs out and it'll still have the effect. Sure, you're probably not going to be looking down there while you're fighting enemies and stuff, but it's pretty reassuring that you'll most likely have it still up. But let's try putting level 3 in there. You'll notice the difference. It's pretty significant. Like it barely even touches it. You can get maybe like several of these off. So if you really want to just like spam this at some point or another, right, just get as many of these full moons as you can, then maybe viable, right? Because the damage is great, but if you haven't even noticed yet, do you see like how much stamina is doing? So I'll get into full moon, I'll break the guard so that it's full, and then I'll do full moon. Sorry, Matt. I'll get into Shadow Strike or Shadow Moonlight stance. And look, like the stamina it's like less than a quarter already. So again, we'll go into Moonlight. I'll refill their stamina. It's full, and then we'll hold and do full moon. It's insane. It's absolutely insane, and the damage is very good too. But yeah. So my mouse. Okay. So having it at level 3, I'm sure you could find a reason to do it, but it's not necessary. And that's all I was getting at. All right. So now let's see it. We had this point in here. So let's go ahead and try and do what I mentioned earlier. We'll try and take out like 6 points just in case you might be like at level 10. So, and again, this will also help you sort of figure out like how you're going to go about putting in your skill points, maybe taking something out and whatnot. This super easy to take out. It's not super necessary, especially as you get further. You're probably timing your blocks and stuff like that better, but I'm most likely going to put another or keep this point in here, maybe take it out and put it back in at some points, but I think it might be pretty nice to have. It's just not required. And that's all I'll say about that. 0 point, it's not super necessary, but I'd still probably keep it. Shadow Cleave, this one, that's pretty easy to just get rid of early. So we're already down 2 levels there, and you get rid of 6. This one, it's so good. It's so good. So you probably don't, but you could probably take the charging speed of this down a little bit if you're not really able to get much punishment off of when their stance breaks, or when you break their stamina, right? If you break the boss's stamina or something, that gauge, it sort of varies, I think, based on what type of enemy you're going up against. I feel like for bosses, it's usually pretty fast. So, oops. So all I wanted to say about that was like, how quickly can you get your spirit thrust, your spiral thrust swirl to activate. And if it's going to be very quick, like their gauge is going to go by quickly, so you only have so much time, I feel like you still could get it, right? I hit, it's going to activate, he's going to be exhausted. I'm going to use spiral thrust, and then my options after that are the circle's about to end. Don't worry, you can animation cancel like mid combo if you want. As long as you hit the button, your character will ignore everything else they were doing and they'll go straight for the brutal strike. So you're totally fine. But anyway, so after I hit, it's gonna start the exhaust, and then I can do my spiral thrust, and it's about to run out, so then we're forced to do brutal. B, there's still some time, so we can get like 1, maybe 2 hits out, and then we do the brutal. And ideally you have enough points to do another spirit thrust. And by the way, if you only have 1 point left and you're able to kind of like see like, oh, I only have 1 point left at the end of this brutal strike, save it, don't use it, right? Because the extra damage is coming from being able to hold it and use up the 2 spirit. Anyway, so I'm gonna hit, I'm gonna do it, got the full charge, and then I have plenty of time, but in this case we'll just assume we didn't have any time, and we get to do that. Also, after the brutal strike, when you do it, the bosses aren't just gonna be like, "Bruh," and then punch you in the face. Like, they kind of like stagger a little bit, so you usually have some time. Maybe not all bosses, but I'd say probably a majority of them, as well as enemies too. But you usually have enough time. So if we were to, like, man, this game hates having the mouse on the screen. If you were to take this down to like 1, it's pretty noticeable. You're there for a while. So maybe not 1, probably 2 is okay. Or I guess if you're at 1, just stay at 1. Don't even worry about getting it to 2. But I'd say you probably want it at 3 so that you can just maximize damage. Because again, when they're exhausted, they take extra damage. And so you want to get that out there quick so that you can hit again. So we've only gotten rid of 2 skill points. How are we going to get there? This one, I'd say probably not super necessary. And this one it's good. It's good. So you probably keep it. I didn't even talk about the common. Thank God there's a common skill tree, because I was like, where am I going to get rid of the rest of these? Anyway, I'd say Reflection Swift, not that great. It doesn't have much to do with the spear build, and that's more so why I didn't really go over it. I'm sure eventually it'll have a little more relevancy, but as for now, Reflection Swift, shortening the activation time of Reflection, which is LBY or LB triangle. It is not super necessary. It might be amazing. Shoot, I might even leave that in there. But brutal attack execution, this is definitely a nice to have. It's a nice to have. When you get a brutal attack on like your basic trash mobs, this gives you a full spirit charge. And that's great because you can just kind of move through the maps, cozily having an additional spirit charge to like spend on whatever. But it's not super necessary. That's just comfort. So we're down, we already got 5 points already. So there's only 1 point left, and I think it is Reflection. Or full moon. We talked about that, right? Yeah. I'd say it's full moon. And that's it. We did it. Sick. Hope you enjoyed. Take it easy. No, yeah, I think that's basically what I would look like. So yeah, I kind of wanted to go over like the combos and stuff on how you're supposed to use it, but I suppose the video is kind of getting a little long, and a lot of you might have already checked out. But I'd have to like set all these up. Give me like 2 seconds. We go. And then there's other stuff I could put points into to help show things off, because I also would have to start generating spirit to like show off certain attacks and stuff. I feel like I kind of gave you the gist of it. I mean, you got your basic attacks, and then you got your point strike, your 0 point. Maybe a separate video. If you guys want, I can show you some of the really cool combos, but ultimately I'd like to make more videos to go over like optimal combo for managing your stamina, because I've said it a few times already, but you don't expect to just use a full combo and your stamina is just, it's gone. It's gone. You can't do anything. So it's going to be relevant to what you're fighting, how much you're able to do, and how much spirit you have in what moment. Stuff like that. You'll figure it out. That's part of the fun. Enjoy the game. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. You know, it's super appreciated. And also subscribe if you haven't already. We'd love to have you. You get notifications when I go live. No, that's my Twitch thing. I'm also on Twitch, twitch.tv/AjilityPoints. You can find me there playing more Khazan and learning more about it. It's a great game. I love it. And thank you. Appreciate you. Take it easy. Be safe. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, or night. Goodbye.